Good morning, everybody. This is Grant from State of the Spark. And guess what? I'm excited about today's show because I want to help you with worry. I think a lot of people deal with worry, and we know that people deal with worry in different ways, and we know that people get triggered with worry in different ways. And my dear, beautiful, beautiful friends, I want to actually address that and help everyone with how I deal with worry. I believe that for all of my strengths and flaws, I do believe dealing with worry is one of those things for me that I fall into the category of superhero. I rarely worry about anything. I've got other neuroses. You have other neuroses. And I'm sure that you have strengths where I have weaknesses. But in the area of worry, I think I got it licked. So today I want to share with you my little construct that I use to eliminate worry, to beat worry, to put it down, and then give a little background on worry and where it actually comes from. Because it's literally mechanics. It's like, Grant, I'm so upset, I have to pee. Oh, Grant, I'm so upset, I have to eat. They're just normal functions, right? When it comes to worry, there's a normal function, but we can feed that thing and turn it into a dragon. We believe that it's a real thing, and it's no more real than eating or peeing. It's no less real than those things as well. But we're going to deal with that today. We're going to jump on that so that we can start this week strong and inspired. So for that, we're going to start with a morning cup of gratitude. You guys know that we love having a morning cup of gratitude. At some point, we'll make sure that having a cup of gratitude is available to you. We should do a gratitude cup contest of some kind. I'll tell you what right now. I'm doing it right now. Gratitude cup contest. Tell me the most interesting but true thing that you're grateful for today, and the winner in the comments gets not my cup of gratitude. We'll get you a clean, fresh cup of gratitude from Spark. So post that in the comments and we'll get it to you. Okay, here we go. What I'm grateful for this morning is this journey called life. I'm grateful for this journey called life. I'm so happy that we have bumps in the road. I'm so happy that we have opportunities for growth in the road, because I know that if you keep breathing, at least you'll overcome it. How do I know? Because I'm here today. And I think you should adopt this too. You are here today. And today is evidence that you have survived every conflict you've ever had before. I'm grateful for something that I can put my best to today. I don't care if those are chores. I don't care if it's work I like or dislike. I love the fact that I have a Zen practice today to make myself better called life. And I'm grateful that you and I are doing it together. I'm grateful that we're sitting here together, sharing our first cup of coffee, talking about basic things, but also talking about the things called life. I really am grateful just to be alive on a beautiful Monday, because we're going to get this thing going today. So that is my morning cup of gratitude. Here we go. In a brief set of other news, today, you can see every planet in our solar system this entire week. Pause. I might need to go out and get me a stinking for real telescope. I mean a for real telescope. I haven't had a telescope since I was a kid, and I love space. And we've got SpaceX satellites, and we've got Mars going on, and we've got the SpaceX Crew Dragon in space. And now we've got every planet in the solar system visible this week. Man, you know I should probably have a telescope. 7 planets will be visible at various points throughout the day. Venus and Mercury are bright enough to see in the mornings, which I'm usually up in the mornings. I'm outside. I went to go see the Leonid meteor shower this morning just to see if I could see what was going on, but it was overcast where I was. It was raining a little bit. Mars, Jupiter, Neptune, and Saturn will be easier to see tonight and throughout the week. The visibility of our planet. So what is causing this? Don't worry. It's not the end of the world. I'm sure some awesome informed Wiccans out there can tell us what it means. I'm sure that we've got a friend that we met the other night, Ed Hardy's girlfriend. She actually has a app called Zodi Love. I'm sure that she could tell us the meaning of the numerology. But here you go. Boom. There's the link to being able to see every planet in our solar system this week. It's awesome. You should check it out. Never miss an opportunity. And I don't know what the chances that this happens again or how frequently this happens, but I highly recommend you actually take a second to check it out. In other news, SpaceX's Starlink satellites deliver Wi-Fi in wind speeds reaching up to 175 reach up to 75 miles an hour in high winds, deep snow, and freezing temperatures. Let's look at this real quick. So what Starlink has dubbed, in a friendly way, the better than nothing beta test. Basically, Starlink's strategy has been giving Starlink and beta testing Starlink with early users in areas around the globe with the lowest internet access. So people in high longitudes in Canada, people in Africa, they're testing this in areas where people just don't have internet, which is brilliant for a lot of reasons. So they call it the better than nothing beta test. But they now actually have paying users testing in high wind speeds, high snow loads. Imagine back in the day when we had a satellite stuck to the house, and as soon as wind would blow, you'd lose your satellite TV. No more of this, a lot of the users say. A lot of the users are posting on Reddit. They're keeping their identities private because of non-disclosures, but they're posting photos and video of their Starlink connection, which is amazing because it looks like you have a satellite on your table. You actually get a tripod and a dish of sorts that's small enough to fit on a patio table, but it does go on your property in some of these areas, and I'm sure that technology will get smaller and better over time. But it's amazing that it works in wind speeds like that. It's amazing that it works in weather like that, because the signal is, if you think about this, this signal is traveling miles through space and not obstructed by clouds or wind. Phenomenal. There you go. And our last piece of other news, and this is my favorite piece of other news this morning. You ready for this? Boom. Artist strategically guides birds with food to draw giant illustrations. That's right. You heard it here first. There is an artist who is taking his time to actually draw with poultry, not dead poultry, live, breathing, living, breathing poultry. This artist basically, we've seen sculptures of all kinds, but this artist is drawing stick figures and Heidecken figures by laying out bird seed and bird food in strategic ways. Oh gosh, I keep posting the wrong link. Here we go. Here's the actual link. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. And there's a hilarious GIF and you can see some of it right there. That is not ants. That's not pointillism. That is a man using birds to draw stick figures and art and recording it. And this is this man's call on this planet. We all have different purposes. This is this man's purpose, to actually draw with birds. So there you had it. Other news this morning. I hope you're entertained this morning. I hope you're educated this morning. And now let's tackle worry. Here we go. In a piece of research, news got around to these researchers that there was a particular restaurant that was famously known for being successful with a high customer service score. But the thing about this restaurant was they had very few servers. And those servers exhibited extraordinary abilities to remember orders and detailed orders. They remembered many of these things. Good morning, Dan Sampson. I know you're out crafting something. Dan, challenge to Dan Sampson, who's watching right now. Challenge to you, my friend. I want to see something. I want to see some of your fine creations on social media or even in my DMs. Just a challenge to another creator that I want to see the thing you're working on to hold you accountable to creating greatness. I know we saw Dan putting together his awesome laboratory for carpentry. He was bringing in all kinds of fancy equipment. And Dan, there is a YouTube channel I want to share with you that I think you'll find very interesting, of fine crafted goods. This guy's a restorer. I'll check in with you. But challenge to you, I want to see your awesome work. So in this research, these servers were able to memorize many orders with accuracy, with high customer service scores in a very busy restaurant. It was one of those restaurants that was off the radar. No one ever knew its name except the locals, but it was phenomenally successful. And a group of researchers heard about this and were intrigued at, could we use this to study memory? So what they did is they went to the restaurant, and the science research, and they basically divided the servers into groups. And they were giving them long lists of orders and tasks to remember. Then they were interrupted. They basically went on with this memory study to interrupt the servers. Now, you see, they were really trying to understand how memory happens. And one of the hypotheses is, if someone is interrupted, it might go into the unconscious mind. And that's how the only way they could explain how these servers were remembering these long orders. Someone will walk up and say, could I get a side of fries? And someone else would say, could I get that, beef Wellington, but could I get it even more rare? And they would be like, okay. And then they would get back to the cooks, and they would just go down the list and nail it. And then the cooks would prep it, and they'd come out and they would serve these dishes. Now, what they found with this, and the very rudimentary side, what the researchers found, is that those who were interrupted remembered longer lists and more orders. Ugh. Oh my gosh. Today we're talking all about, not today, but in our day and age, we talk about deep work all the time. We talk about low stress environments all the time. It's optimal when you're not stressed. Is that true? It's optimal when you're in deep work and not interrupted. Well, is that true? What type of work are we talking about? So these researchers summarized their work, and they found that those who were interrupted could remember more orders and longer lists. That's great. If you're in a memory competition, that's fantastic. If you're a server in a busy restaurant. But they found out other things that I think are supremely important with how we understand worry. And I think this is important for you to hear, my friends, so that you actually can address this demon called worry. This quote, I have met the enemy and he is us. I can't tell you how often I've thought, that's not just self-sabotage. That's worry. In fact, I can't tell you how often I've thought self-sabotage is probably more often than not comes in the guise of worry. So what did the research find about stress? Let's talk about this real quick. This research study that studied these servers who could remember long lists of orders in detail and get them accurate, even when they were interrupted. How did the stress work? Let me share some of this with you. Those who worked continuously, for example, they took an order, went to the kitchen, delivered the order. Those who worked continuously could not remember as many orders, but they did report less stress. They were less stressed, but their bosses reported less productivity. You see, these servers would actually take a few orders, and before they would get interrupted, before they would go to another table, before they would do anything, they would walk calmly to the back, relay their orders to the cooks in the line in the back, and then they would come out and attend the next table. Their bosses, they discovered later after the research, in hindsight, that the bosses reported, those are our less productive employees. How was their accuracy? Well, their accuracy was high, but they got to less tables, and the reviews from customers were lower. Sometimes a calm environment and getting it accurate is not the best thing. Whoa. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's critical, but not always. So and here was the other group, those who were interrupted more and remembered more orders and lists reported to usually be more stressed. So even though they could remember all these lists, and even though they could handle everybody, and even though they got to every table, and then they go back to the back, and they had this extraordinary ability to relay the orders accurately, their bosses loved them. They reported higher productivity, and the reviews were higher. But they were more exhausted at the end of the day than those who would calmly take an order and go to the back. Those who calmly took an order and went to the back, they felt like they had a life still. They could leave work at work. But those who had this extraordinary memory were more exhausted at the end of the day. So which is better? Depending on if you're reading a Forbes 100 list, you might say, hey, man, that's a fantastic amount of productivity. Go with the little more stress for more memory, and your employees are exhausted at the end of the day. Hey, that's the job. But if you were reading an article from a work-life balance psychology article, they would say the other way is important. Why don't you take the orders nice and slow, walk back to the line, deliver those orders, and calmly go to the next table? It's a lower productivity. You might make your bosses a little less happy, but you're less stressed at the end of the day. Depends on the goal. But there was a hidden third group in the research. And they only found out later that this hidden third group found out that the bosses said they were extremely high performers. And they happened to also memorize the most amount of orders. They also happened to get the highest reviews. And they also reported that they could leave work at work and were like, I'm not that stressed. It was busy, but I wasn't stressed. And it was a much smaller sample group. Dan Sampson said part of this could be personality. And Dan, you're exactly right. It starts with personality. The next is actual framework. But the default, yes, Dan Sampson says part of this could be personality. Absolutely. You got to match your personality to the work. So we haven't even talked about like career fit, and we should. But in the context of worry, there's personality, but there is also skills. If you were to be a golfer, yes, there's genetics, but at some point you got to put in the work. If you were to be a speaker, I have a natural propensity for speaking. I would never hold it over somebody who wasn't natural. But 20 years on, if someone 20 years ago said they wanted to be a speaker and we were both on the same journey for the last 20 years, we should be almost equal after 20 years of skill. Because at some point, what I have as an unconscious competence, anyone could develop as a conscious competence, given enough time. But personality cannot be ignored, especially in the early days. So what is the conclusion about this third group that the scientists found? The third group that the scientists found is that they cared. Hear this. Oh, this is so scary. They cared. The way that it was expressed is they cared a little less. Not that they didn't care about the outcome. They cared a little bit less that it was perfect, and they cared a little bit more that the customer in the restaurant had an extremely positive experience. They were customer facing, and to Dan Sampson's point, it is temperamental to be more focused on the person versus the details, or the details versus the person. We know that that is one way to categorize people. But here's what the researchers concluded about worry. At its simplest, worry, and by proxy, the stress that comes from worry, is due to open loops and how we feel about open loops. You see, the servers that could remember long amounts of orders and kept them in their head and focused on the employees and were rushing around, they reported higher stress, but they went back to the line and reported all of the orders accurately. There's some stress there. They're worrying and keeping it all in their head. It's called open loops. Keep that term in your head. It's called open loops. That doesn't help us stop from worrying to know this fact, that worry is open loops, and these loops have arbitrary value. But the third group, the highest group, when they had some zen about it, the memorization of the order still went back to the unconscious. They cared a little bit less, so their brain was less cinched up. When they went back to the cook line, they could report them all of the orders accurately without stressing, and they could recall with a calm disposition to the line, and then walk away and continue their work, and then come back and remember the orders better when they were delivering it and which seats they were in, because their brain wasn't clenched up. The arbitrary value of importance wasn't placed on the memory. So here's some principles I want to give you about worry real quick that I have in my life that keeps my paradigm when it comes to worrying low. That doesn't mean bad things don't happen. It doesn't mean I'm scoring 100% on all tests. It just means I'm not worried, which means I generally operate under much less stress levels, which generally means I am present a smaller but higher percentage of the time. I'm sorry, a higher percentage of the time. I am present with creative solutions, abundant-minded, and productive work. We can solve for those other components later, but today with worry, for my superpower, let me just share a little bit. For me, worry and goals are on the opposite end of the spectrums. You see, worry and goals are opposites, and here's why. Both are not certain about the future. Both are imagined. You imagine what you're worrying about. You imagine your goals. Both, whether I'm setting a goal or whether I'm worrying about a thing, both are focused on the same data. Both take willpower. It takes willpower to worry. You have to actually conjure yourself into a position to worry. You have to choose it. Now, it feels unconjured, but I'm going to get to that in a second. Because I believe that worry and goals are a choice. We learn, those who learn to worry, though there is personality involved in which you gravitate towards, I consider this, worry and goals start out as lizards in our life, and we feed them to become dragons. So worry and goals take willpower. And both are addictive. We get addicted. We get a neurodump. And we can get addicted to negative neurochemicals just like we can get addicted to positive neurochemicals. One of them is adrenaline. You can get addicted to adrenaline. Worriers in my life that I've seen over the years, worriers are addicted to the adrenaline. I can get addicted to the high of goals and talking about vision, but worriers can get addicted to the freak out and the fear and the rally that comes from the adrenaline and then the cortisol. And then all the negative, they're just neurochemicals and both are addictive. Worry is believing. So if my first principle concept, and this is not my construct on how I get out of it, but just two major principles. Number one, worry and goals are opposites. They're on the same spectrum, but they are both uncertain of the future. They're both imagined. They both take willpower and they're both addictive. Worry is believing that we are victim of an unrealized future. We're victim. We're subject to the whims. We're powerless in that world. Whereas goals believe that we have agency and we can win. Worry is believing that no matter whether or not we have agency, we can't win. It's believing that. It's believing that. No, Grant, I'm just thinking of the possible outcomes. That's not worry. Goal setters think of possible outcomes. Don't tell me worriers are just thinking about possible outcomes. They're thinking of the worst ones. Because goal setters also think about possible outcomes. They're just thinking of the better ones. Which is better? Well, you want to be ready for any situation. So why don't you just set goals for any situation? Worry is addicted to the negative neurochemicals that come from thinking about the worst, the adrenaline, and that honestly becomes how the person prepares. Goal setters get addicted to the positive neurochemicals that fall from feeling empowered, and that's how they prepare. Which of them is better? Obviously, in my opinion, I believe the goals are better. Why? Because the quality of the decisions comes from a creative space. Worriers are often detail-oriented people, not to a person, but quite often. And when worriers think, well, so what? This is how I pump myself up. I worry about negative outcomes. My adrenaline hits, my cortisol hits, and I'm like, I'm ready now. Now let's just put me in, boss. Why? Because I'm thinking about all the possible outcomes. Well, what could happen is they might, in some circumstances, be the better prepared person for life's circumstances, the things happening in life the next day, because they've thought of all the possible outcomes. But watch them. If you've thought of all the outcomes and you thought of all the details, and negativity comes up, how do you respond? I was prepared for this, Grant. I thought of it last night and I was ready and I handled it smoothly and it went off well because I thought of that. And then we were thrown this curveball, but I thought of that one too. Do you ever see that from a worrier? From someone full of anxiety? No. You see nail biting. So obviously, I believe that the goal setting approach is better. But sometimes too much vision can be a problem. We've seen that, but we're not talking about that problem today. We're talking about the problem of worry. So if we can break this down, number one, my construct that causes me to go through life with much less worry is that worry and goals are opposites. And that worry is believing that we are at the whims of an uncertain future. Goals, for an opposite, are believing that we have agency to create our future no matter what we encounter. Worry is focusing on possibly what we could encounter and what could go wrong. So, by definition, worry is disempowering. By definition, in Grant's construct, you can take it or leave it, but this is my construct on how I go through life with like nearly zero stress and nearly zero worry. Again, I still have a lot of black marks I got to correct. I still have a lot of things to work on, but I go through life without worry. So here is my acronym for you. You're going to hate it, but I love it. It's goals. Number one, go out. Number two, open acceptance that you're worrying. Number three, address it immediately. And number four, list. So here we go. Number one, go out. The number one thing I do when I realize I'm starting to worry is I do something physical. This started for me in theater. As an actor, I have stage fright. You didn't think I was going to say that. I'm also at the same time very comfortable being on the stage. It's a paradox because they're two separate things. They're not polar opposites. They're in two separate buckets. I get butterflies every time I go on stage. So back when I was a young man getting into theater, I was very comfortable with delivering my lines and delivering concepts and talking here and being animated. That's natural, but I still get nervous every time. So what do? Well, in theater, I would do push-ups before I'd go out. I'd get butterflies and I'd feel like I was absolutely going to puke. And I would do jumping jacks and do push-ups. That's how I learned to calm myself. The blood rate puts blood in other places, not just in my gut, and I calm down just enough to get over the hump of walking out on stage. And once I walk out on stage, I'm fine. It's the buildup. It's the fear. And that is worry for me. In fact, worry very rarely occurs when you're encountering something. Worry normally is the anticipation. It's like watching a slasher film. Just put me in, man. Let me engage. It's the terror building up to it. Worry is actually micro PTSD leading up to the terror of an event. Usually you just need to engage with that event. We'll get to that in a second. So number one in the goals acronym is go outside. Go do something. Go out. Go walk around the lake. Go do an exercise. Go talk to a friend over coffee. Go engage with reality because worry is imagined and it's out of control inside of you. It's a dragon you have fed for years and years and years, and it's just out of control. If you worry to the point that it keeps you up at night, if you worry to the point where you cannot eat, if you worry to the point where you can't sit down and do the work, you can't do creative things, then your worry is debilitating and out of control. Hear me on that. If you're worrying to the point where it's disrupting and interrupting your life, it's called a disorder. You have fed that level of imagination to the point where you cannot function normally. That's the definition. Go read the definition of a disorder. So what do I do to dispel imaginations I don't want? Fear, anger, when I'm absolutely angry. Fear, when I'm afraid. When I'm uncertain. What's the number one thing I do? I call a friend and go do coffee and go outside. Why? Because you start to level off and you get anchored in reality. It's kind of like a meditation. You need to get re-anchored in reality. You're in imagination that you've manifested and you put skin on it and you've given it a smell and you've given it a look and you're afraid of it, but it's all in here. So if I can go anchor myself in reality, this is why working out is so good. The visceral nature of working out and doing push-ups, jumping jacks, or sitting with coffee, talking to a friend, giving yourself sensory encounters. Go make love to your spouse. Go get sensory encounters that anchor you in reality. Not that you shouldn't plan ahead and think about things, but if thinking about things conjures the dragon in you, go out. Number 2, open acceptance. In our acronym for goals, G, go out. O is open acceptance. Openly accept that you are worried. Don't try to pretend you're not worried. Oh, I'm not worried. I'm just thinking about things. Don't lie to yourself. I'm worrying about things. Don't lie to yourself. The O in our goals acronym is open acceptance that you are worrying. Why do we do this? Let us admit that we are worrying. I want you to do this as a meditation. If you're used to practicing meditation, you sit and you meditate. This is not about emptying your mind. Meditation is not about emptying your mind. Meditation is about observing your thoughts, and instead of reacting to the thought, oh, I'm worried. You like the phrase that I love is you watch it pass like a cloud. So when I'm sitting there and I'm meditating, I'm just meditating for 5 minutes. I don't need to think about work for 5 minutes. If I can't do that, I don't have a life. So I can sit down, I meditate for 5 minutes, and I suddenly think about my to-do list. I don't do anything. I rehearse not reacting. I rehearse this in meditation. So I watch that thought come up. And instead of, let me write that down, let me capture it in my cell phone, let me write down a sticky note. Instead of any of that, I let the thought pass and think, I'll get back to you later. Goodbye. Similar with worry. If you have a meditation practice, by the way, it is huge for how I handle worry, how I superpower over worry. But number 1 is I go out. If you experience yourself, run an errand even. Go grocery shopping, fill up the gas tank, go encounter other humans in natural life, and your worry will go down dramatically. Watch that. Number 2, open acceptance that you are worried allows you to treat it as a meditation. I'm worried. You watch the cloud appear and pass, and then you go on with the other activities. You allow it to exist without engaging it. That's the big thing. Can you allow worry to exist and not engage it and get focused to agency work where you can impose your will on that thing? Absolutely. But if you just think, I'm thinking about it, why? You know what to do. Well, I can't do anything about it now. You could. We'll get to that in just a quick second, actually. So the G is go out. The O is open acceptance as meditation. The A in our goal acronym is address it. Act on it. Address and act on it. So here's the thing about worry. Worry for most people I have found happens in the night hour. They feel like they can't act on it. They often, when they're working on it, aren't worried about it as much. They might be thinking about it, it might be there, but it's not a dragon, it's just a lizard, or maybe just a Komodo dragon. Their worry is not the dragon they have fed over the years. It's often a much smaller creature when they're working on it. So here's the thing. I have discovered a lot of you people lay down to bed and suddenly your brain starts spinning. And in our coaching, you've said as much, you know who you are. In our relationship, I know as much, you know who you are. You worry, and when your head hits the pillow, you start thinking of things. But thinking for you turns into worry. Here's the thing. First off, you need to retrain the fact that when you lay in bed, it's only good for 2 things, sleeping and sex. Not your phone, not worry, not shows. Good morning, Jessica. Hope you're doing great in Fort Collins this morning. Jessica's enjoying a vacation with her family out there in the lovely, lovely snowy West. She sent me photos. It's fantastic. I'm jelly. So worry. Worry often happens for people when they lay down. Bed should only be for sleeping and sex, not phones, not shows, but you've programmed it to be as such. And we have patchwork tools to deal with our worry, but we need to actually start correcting our life. So here's what I'm going to tell you. G, go out. O, open acceptance so that you can deal with your worry as meditation. A, address and act on it. If something is worrying you so much that it is keeping you up, get up. Go work on it. In fact, I just read this in a research study, how most people can correct sleep insomnia is to leave the room. If you are experiencing a small degree of insomnia for any reason, including worry, go sit on the couch and read. Go sit at your home office desk and work. Work. Well, what if I'm tired? You're obviously not tired enough to fall asleep. So if you sit on the couch and read until you get tired again and then go back to your bed, you might wake up again and you might have a few sleepless nights, but you're retraining your body that you're retraining your mind that when I lay in this bed, it's for sleep or sex, and that's it. So when you lay down and you start to wake up again while you're in bed worrying, go act on it. If the mindfulness practices do not alleviate your worry, if education about worry does not alleviate your worry, the only thing left is to act on it, because when you act on it, you feel empowered. When you feel empowered, you feel in charge and you feel on top of it. So I am giving you permission to have sleepless nights, but don't have unproductive sleepless nights. Act on it. This is how I deal with worry. If the mindfulness practice doesn't alleviate worry, act on it. Basically, if worry is unknowns, then get up and do your research. Sit down at your home office desk and research that thing that you were looping on. Write it up on a piece of paper until it's out of your head. I research it. This is what I'm going to do. If the open loop keeping you awake is just something that needs to be completed, get up and complete it. Go to work. I'll be exhausted the next day. Good. You should feel exhausted and put yourself through that day, and I guarantee you'll probably sleep that night. Don't sleep in the middle of the day. Stay up, work, get to sleep. You'll start to get tired again. Great. Lay down. When your alarm gets off, make yourself get up. You're going to be tired those first few days, but eventually when your head hits the pillow, you're going to start sleeping at night and training your body to deal with worry differently. I'm telling you, the A in our G.O.A.L, our goals acronym for dealing with worry, the A is address and act on it immediately. If it's a research item that you got to clarify, do it. If it's a communication with a friend, send that communication immediately. It is keeping you up. Deal with it. Number 3, if it's something that you need to act on it. If it's keeping you up, act on it. Dan Sampson said, don't mess with the nap time. Now, Dan, my man, you and I are nappers. Marissa knows this. I'm a napper, but I nap not because I'm tired at night. I nap because naturally I come out of the gate with so much energy that normally around 1:30 or 2 p.m. I lay down, and it's usually no more than 20 minutes. And then I'm a power napper. I get up and I could go right up into the evening. I can do that every day. So I don't want to mess with nap time. I agree with you, man. Dan says, don't mess with the nap time. 100%, brother. So I do think the A in G.O.A.L, dealing with worry, is addressing and acting. I believe you should wage war against restlessness and make sure that when you have a thought, if you sniff that it's about to lead to worry, act. Do the other things. Go outside. I'm not going to worry. I've got priorities. But if this thing is starting to hijack your day, address it and act on it. And the L in goals is list. I don't know about you, but quite often when I worry, which isn't often, but sometimes when I worry, I have these open loops. We've already talked about open loops in the story earlier about the research of the waitresses. It's these open loops. Well, often it's enough for me to capture my open loops in a list. I put it in Google Keep, I put it in Evernote, or I put it in sticky notes, or I put it in my Moleskine. I put it in something I'm going to touch at my desk in the morning. And often it's just out of my head. I'm now trained that if I get it out of my head, I stop worrying about it. I'm still aware of it. It is still an open loop because chances are if it's a to-do list on an item, it has to be acted on. And often I know what to do. Sometimes it's a communication with somebody and you're waiting, you're nervous about the response, but you have to do your part and send your part. Hey, how are you doing? Hey, I'm worried about it. Hey, are we cool? Sometimes you just got to communicate that. I get it. And you're not really sure what the impact of that could be. But what does it matter? Write it down on a list. So I call it the download. In fact, the Top 100 Dream Igniter, my book that we're working on the hardback right now. And I've had the softback. It's on the shelf over there. I've had the paperback for almost 10 years that we wrote. Actually, it's just under 10 years, probably 8 years. I've had the paperback. You can find it on Amazon still, but don't buy it because the updated version is coming out. But the Top 100 Dream Igniter, it's been out for a while. It's a workbook actually on getting stuff out of your head. I started this because as a kid with ADD, I had a horrible anxiety. I had absolute. I would go through, I don't know if you remember the antacid chewies. I had these antacid chewies that I would eat an entire roll of these antacid chewies every single day. Suzanne said, truth, goals, this absolutely works. Many years of experiences. Absolutely, Suzanne. When I've been stressed or worried as Mr. ADD, it's because I had so many desires and so many thoughts and they would exist up here and I couldn't sleep at night. People think that I'm not a worrier based on I was born that way. That's not true. I don't think it was true. You could ask my mother, but I don't think it was true. I believe that I was a worrier, but not like, oh, I'm worried that life sucks. I was worried because I had so much going on in my head. I never knew how I could manifest the life I wanted to live. I had too many goals. And I had no way to get it out. I was ADD, and no one teaches you how to get your thoughts out and put them into a strategy. That's why I wrote the Top 100 Dream Igniter, because I came up with my own process. I call it the download. And within the Top 100 Dream Igniter, there's multiple steps, but one of the major steps is the download, and that's getting all these thoughts out. If you're a worrier, get the thought out, write it down, and then write out your fears about it, write out your concerns about it, write it out. You'll see a huge catharsis. So how do I deal with worry? That's why you're here today. If you caught this from the beginning, let's just summarize. First and foremost, I recognize that worry is the antithesis of goals. They're both imagined. They both take willpower. They're both addictive. One is addicted to the positive neurochemicals. The other is addicted to the negative neurochemicals, but they're just neurochemicals. Both get addicted. Worry and goals both can get out of control, but both in and of themselves aren't bad. They both start as lizards, but whichever one you feed turns into a dragon. So if you have a dragon that keeps you up at night, keeps you restless during the day, keeps you ineffective and lack of creativity, you have a disorder. Hear me. And I say that with all the love in the world. You have a disorder. That construct then led me to come up with my framework, which is G.O.A.L.S. or G.O.A.L, goal. And that is go out, whether it's walking the lake or sitting with coffee with a friend, go get grounded in reality. Number 2, open acceptance that you're worried so that you can deal with it as a meditation. I'm worried. And you can watch that thought pass before your eyes. But if that doesn't work, the A stands for address and act on it immediately. I don't care what time of day. I don't care what time of night. Get up and do the responsible thing. If your unconscious brain is generating something, then go do and follow that spirit, follow that nudging, and go deal with it. Go sit and read a book, or go write about that note, or go take action, or go research whatever that thing is that's nagging you. And you're gonna have a tired day. That's fine, but you need to retrain your brain to sleep at night. And number 4, L, list. Download everything. Give it a place to exist, not in your head, so that when you wake up the next day, you can just tackle it. Is this a surefire way to eliminate worry? No. This is the repeatable process for when worry comes up. And when it comes up, you rinse and repeat. Doing this for the last, since I was 18 or 20, doing this process since I was 18 or 20, I'm nearly worry-free. So it's taken me 25 plus years. How old am I? I don't even know. Almost 30 years of this. Jeez. 25 plus years, 22 plus years of doing this. I finally seem like I'm relatively worry-free. Does that mean I have $1 million in the bank? Does that imply that I don't have problems in my business? No, of course not. This is how I synthesize worry. Listen, I hope this was useful to you. I hope and pray that you are not a victim for long to the worry you're experiencing. Why? My friends, because remember the mission: to ignite lives of explosive significance, starting with your own, and worry gets in the way. So I encourage you today, get productive, find your own method, share with me your method of dealing with worry. I hope you have a phenomenal week. Let's kill it today. Let's kill it this week. Let's dominate. Share with me your goals in the comments this week. Start telling me about what you're going to do and not what you're afraid of. I want to hear it in the comments. I want to hear what you're worried about. Tell me, but not from the paradigm of what I'm worried about, but from the paradigm of what I'm going to do about it. So I will imply what you've been worried about based on your comments today of what you're going to do. I love you guys. Dan says, great stuff as always. Dan, you're amazing. I want to see your great stuff. I want to see your woodwork, man. I want to see your craftsmanship. Put it out in the world, Dan. I'm excited and looking forward to it. Don't rush it. Just know that I'm excited for it. Thank you guys so much. Have a killer day. Ignite lives of explosive significance today, starting with your own. And I'll catch you on the flip side.